Okay people, we got a problem. Fake news is everywhere. So let's talk about the biggest stories that people were convinced were real. At 8 p.m. on October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles put on a broadcast that has become known as one of the biggest hoaxes of all time. Welles adapted H.G. Wells' 1898 novel, The War of the Worlds, into a radio drama made up of breaking on-the-scene reports of aliens invading New York City and New Jersey. News reports around the country in the days after the broadcast reported that there had been mass hysteria and that the highways were jammed with people fleeing. But as it turns out, all of those reports were fake. The War of the Worlds broadcast was actually a scheduled episode of the Mercury Theater on air. Now, while some people believe that Martians with death rays were wiping out the human race, the program only had a small audience, and there weren't actually any reports of mass hysteria. Just a few panicked people who were freaked out after they tuned in late. In the late 700s, the Catholic Church was trying to take over control of European states from the ruling class. To get the upper hand, the church claimed that they had already had the rights to the land thanks to the donation of Constantine, a letter written by the Roman Emperor Constantine I in the 4th century. As a thank you to Pope Sylvester I for curing him of his leprosy and converting him to Christianity, Constantine gave the church ownership and political control of land in Europe, Asia, and Africa. And for centuries, everybody bought it. It wasn't until 1440 that the Italian Catholic priest Lorenzo Valla proved that it was fake and really written in the mid-8th century because certain words and phrases wouldn't have been used or even invented yet. The church covered it up for years, but eventually admitted the truth, even though many people still insist it was real. But it's cool, everybody, that's the first time the church ever covered something up. During the 2016 American presidential election cycle, bipartisan fake news sites started popping up online. The Denver Guardian claimed to be the oldest news publication in Denver, and the site looked legitimate, but it only had one news story that was posted on November 5th, just days before the election. The article, entitled "FBI Agents Suspected in Hillary Email Leaks Found Dead in Apparent Murder-Suicide," contained quotes from sources like Police Chief Pat Frederick from Walkerville, Maryland, neither of which existed. The Denver Post and NPR exposed The Guardian as fake and run by 40-year-old Justin Kohler, who also owned other fake news sites. But that didn't stop the story from being shared over 500,000 times and having over 15.5 million interactions on Facebook, making it one of the most shared fake news stories of 2016. Everybody, please listen to me, this is important. Think before you share stuff on Facebook, a lot of it's fake. Mother of God! On November 8th, 2016, India's Prime Minister announced that the country was introducing a 2,000 rupee note, but that all 500 and 1,000 rupee notes were being taken out of circulation and would become invalid at midnight. The move was meant to stop illegal counterfeit operations, but the short notice led to confusion and, panic. India actually has over 50 million WhatsApp users, and a rumor that the new note was actually a spying device quickly went viral across the messaging app and social media. India's Reserve Bank was quick to call the claims false, but even the mainstream media started reporting the claim that the new note was equipped with a nano GPS chip that could track you nearly 400 feet below ground. The incident ended up bringing light to just how fast news stories spread over the internet and the impact of low journalistic standards. On August 25, 1835, the New York Sun newspaper published the first of 6 Great Astronomical Discoveries articles, which said that alien life had been discovered on the moon. What made the story so convincing was that the famous real-life astronomer Sir John Herschel had made the discovery while looking through his seriously impressive telescope. The articles were supposedly written by Herschel's colleague, Dr. Andrew Grant, and claimed that the moon was covered in crystal caves, rivers, and forests, and even had exotic creatures like winged humanoid bats, two-legged beavers, and unicorns. At the time, people were obsessed with astronomy and theories on alien life, and the Sun's subscriptions skyrocketed. But in 1840, reporter Richard Locke said that he wrote the stories to increase sales and to mock those alien believers. Why is there such a lack of critical thinking skills? People with bat wings don't exist. In 1915, a rumor spread that Germany was using the bodies of dead soldiers to render fat for candles, lubricants, and soap. Now, Germany, of course, denied it, but the story was printed without proof in newspapers in France, Britain, and America. In April of 1917, the Daily Mail and the Times newspapers claimed to have an anonymous source who had visited a so-called corpse utilization factory. The Times also cited a story in a German paper by reporter Cal Rosner, who had visited a corpse factory and saw cadavers with a K. But at this time, cadavers with a C referred to animals like horses, not humans. But the British still used the story to convince China to join in the war against Germany, which they did on August 14th, 1917. They were eventually proven to be fake, but the Nazis used it as proof that the British had made up the Holocaust during the Second World War. In September of 2009, news outlets across Australia, including the Associate Press, reported on a scientific study entitled Deception Detection Across Australian Populations. It was supposedly published by Dr. Carl Varnson at the Levitt Institute and studied how gullible Australians were, with Sydney ranking as the most naive city in the whole country. Now, the report looked pretty official, but it had a big clue that the whole thing was fake. Hidden in the scientific methodology was the line, "These results were completely made up to be fictitious material through a process of modified truth and credibility nodes." In other words, y'all are idiots. Sydney's dummy status caused a lot of public outcry, which kind of showed how naive everyone was, which was kind of the idea, and that you should always fact check before reporting. It turns out the whole thing was a big hoax to promote a new comedy news TV show. You may be surprised to learn that one of the founding fathers of the United States of America was also one of the earliest spreaders of fake news, or not. In 1782, America was in the middle of the War of Independence against Great Britain, and Ben Franklin was looking for creative ways to gain support. He wrote a completely false article about British allied Native Americans scalping 700 defenseless Revolutionary soldiers, women and children, and even included a fake letter from real-life war hero John Paul Jones to support his story. He printed it in fake copies of the Boston newspaper, the Independent Chronicle, and sent it to all of his colleagues. It was then reprinted as fact in many American newspapers. The story was widely believed and spread false ideas about Native Americans as savage, un-American British sympathizers. Oh, Benny Boo Boo, why you do this? That's so nice. By 2014, only 1% of Myanmar's population had the internet, but by 2016, that rose to 20%. There are even magazines that print popular online stories, true or false. Now, Myanmar has a Buddhist majority, and there has been tension and violence with the country's Muslim minority. In 2016, fake news stories and pictures of Muslims being tortured were spreading, but most of the photos were taken from not only unrelated events, but completely different countries. Making it worse is that at the same time, there were news stories about Muslims committing terrible crimes against Buddhists. At first, neither were true, but an investigation by the journalist Shira Frankel found that the stories did have a direct impact on an increase in hate crimes and violence towards Muslims. This include burning down Muslim villages and murders of at least 70 people. In late 2016, posters on 4chan and Reddit spread a conspiracy theory that a pedophile sex trafficking ring involving members of the Democratic Party was operating out of the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria in Washington, D.C. It was uncovered after Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta's emails, supposedly with coded messages about the sex ring, were leaked by WikiLeaks. The story was of course debunked, and DC police said it was all fake, but it still went viral on Twitter and Facebook, and even in the Turkish press. Comet's owners, James Alefantis, started to get death threats, and on December 4th, 2016, 28-year-old Edgar Welch opened fire in the pizzeria. Now luckily, no one was hurt, but Welch said that he wanted to self-investigate the claims and only surrendered once he believed that there weren't any child sex slaves being held hostage. Okay, there should be a law that before you're even allowed to log onto the internet, you have to put on your critical thinking cap. Think, people! Damn it! But as always, thank you guys so much for watching this. If you enjoyed it, or maybe you got a laugh out of it, make sure you click that like button, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. I'm gonna have a brand new video for you tomorrow at 12 West Coast time, 3 Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you come back to my channel then. Have a great day. I will see you then.